In a quiet village nestled between towering mountains and vast golden fields lived a poor but honest man named Arman. His days were filled with relentless toil, yet his nights were spent in solitude, staring at the stars, wondering when life would change for him. He was born into poverty, and from the moment he could walk, he had learned that survival was a daily battle. His father had passed away when he was just a child, leaving his mother to fend for both of them. But fate was cruel. One harsh winter, she fell ill, and without money for medicine, she left Arman all alone in the world. Despite his hardships, Arman never allowed despair to consume him. He worked from dawn till dusk, offering his strength to farmers, shopkeepers, and builders, earning just enough to buy a piece of bread and a cup of water each day. The villagers often mocked him. "Hard work means nothing if luck isn't on your side," they would say. But Arman believed differently. He had a firm belief that time was the greatest force in the world, that it watched over everything, and one day it would reward him for his patience and honesty. One chilly evening, after a long day of carrying sacks of grain for a merchant, Arman walked home with aching limbs and an empty stomach. He had barely earned enough to buy food. As he made his way through the village outskirts, he saw something unusual. A frail old man, lying on the side of the road, shivering from the cold. His clothes were torn, his lips cracked from thirst, and his eyes reflected a deep sadness. Without hesitation, Arman removed his only shawl, the one thing that shielded him from the bitter cold, and wrapped it around the old man. Then he walked to the nearest well, filled a clay pot with water, and helped the man drink. The old man's hands trembled as he held Arman's arm and said, in a weak but grateful voice, "You are a rare soul, young man. Remember, this time watches everything, and it always repays those who act with a pure heart." Arman smiled and nodded, though he didn't expect anything in return. Helping someone in need was more valuable to him than any reward. After ensuring that the old man was safe, he continued home, unaware that this simple act of kindness would change his fate forever. Days turned into weeks, and nothing changed in Arman's life. He continued struggling for survival, but deep inside, he held onto hope. However, time was about to test him in the most brutal way. One fateful night, a terrible storm struck the village. The winds howled like angry spirits, and the rain poured down like an unforgiving flood. Arman's tiny hut, built with his own hands, was no match for nature's fury. As the storm raged on, his home was torn apart, and by morning, everything he owned was gone. His clothes, his savings, even the little food he had stored. Now homeless, he sat under a tree, drenched and cold, staring at the sky. "Is this the reward for my patience?" he whispered. He had always believed in time's fairness, but at that moment, he questioned everything. With nowhere to go, he made a bold decision. He would leave the village and seek a new life elsewhere. Arman walked for days, his stomach empty, his feet covered in blisters. He knocked on doors, asking for food, but most people turned him away. Hunger and exhaustion began to break him, but his spirit refused to give up. Finally, after a long and painful journey, he reached a vast and bustling city, a place unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering buildings, endless markets, and people rushing about filled his vision. The sheer scale of the city overwhelmed him, but he reminded himself, time tests those it wishes to reward. He approached shopkeepers, laborers, and merchants, asking for work, but every rejection felt like a dagger to his heart. "Why would I hire a homeless man?" scoffed a cloth merchant. "You have no experience. Leave," said a blacksmith. "This city isn't for beggars," a passerby muttered, looking at his torn clothes. Just as Arman was about to lose hope, a familiar voice called out his name. He turned around and was shocked to see the same old man he had helped months ago. But this time, the old man was dressed in fine robes, sitting in a grand carriage. The old man's eyes widened in recognition. "Young man, is it really you?" He stepped down from the carriage and embraced Arman warmly. "I have searched for you since that night," the old man said, his voice filled with emotion. "You saved my life when I had nothing, and today it is my turn to return the favor." Arman was taken aback. The old man, whom he had assumed was a mere beggar, was actually a powerful merchant, one of the wealthiest in the city. Months ago, he had been robbed and left for dead. If not for Arman's kindness, he would not have survived. That day, the old man took Arman to his mansion, gave him new clothes, a warm meal, and most importantly, an opportunity. "You have honesty in your heart and strength in your hands," the old man said. "Work with me, and I will teach you the secrets of success." Arman worked harder than ever before, learning everything about trade, business, and wealth. He never let success blind him, nor did he forget his humble beginnings. Years passed, and through honesty, intelligence, and patience, he became the most trusted man in the merchant's empire. With time, Arman started his own trading company, and it flourished beyond imagination. The same city that had once rejected him now celebrated him. The same people who had turned him away now sought his help. His wealth grew, but his heart remained the same. One evening, as he stood on the balcony of his grand house, looking over the city, he remembered the words of the old man. "Time watches everything, and it always repays those who act with a pure heart." He finally understood the true power of time. It does not reward instantly, nor does it punish immediately, but it keeps track of every action, every sacrifice, and every kindness. Time does not forget, it simply waits for the right moment. Years later, when Arman had built a fortune greater than he ever dreamed, he returned to his village. The same villagers who had once mocked him now welcomed him with open arms. But instead of revenge or arrogance, he used his wealth to build schools, wells, and homes for the poor. One young boy, fascinated by his story, asked, "How did you become so rich?" Arman smiled and replied, "I didn't chase money. I chased patience, kindness, and hard work. And time did the rest." And so, the poor man who once had nothing became a legend, not because of his riches, but because he proved that time is the greatest force in the world.